Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into some serious, high-stakes drama from a single, incredibly intense chapter, Exodus 33. This is a story about a relationship that's, well, it's on the brink of complete collapse. We're going to see a leader's desperate negotiation and, get this, one of the most audacious requests ever made in history. So the whole thing kicks off with this chilling ultimatum from God. I mean, there's no hello, no preamble at all. It's just, boom, a command for the people of Israel to strip themselves bare. Right away, you know we're in for a major confrontation. This is a sign of a massive breakdown in a relationship that was supposed to be, unbreakable. And here it is. This is our source text for today's explainer, the full chapter of Exodus 33. Now, it might just look like one page, but trust me, it is an incredibly dense and emotionally charged story. So we're going to unpack it step by step and really see how this crisis unfolds and how it gets resolved. Okay, so let's set the stage for Act 1. You got to remember the context here. The Israelites have just committed a massive act of disobedience. We're talking about the infamous golden calf incident. And in response to that, God makes this absolutely shocking declaration that just changes, well, everything. And here's the bombshell. God basically says, okay, I'll give you the land I promised your ancestors, but I'm not going with you. And why? He calls them a stiff-necked people. In other words, they're so stubborn, so disobedient, that he's worried his own anger might just flare up and, poof, consume them on the way. It's this incredible mix of, here's your promise and, but I'm done with you. So how did the people take this news? I mean, just imagine being told that your ultimate protector is abandoning you, and get this, supposedly for your own safety. You can imagine, for the Israelites, this news wasn't just bad, it was absolutely devastating. And it's really important to look at the words used here. The text doesn't just say bad news, no, it calls it evil tidings. That suggests something way more serious, right? It's an existential threat. Think about it. Without God's presence, they're not just a wandering tribe anymore. They're a nation with no identity, no future, nothing.
And their response is fascinating. It kind of unfolds in these three distinct stages. First, just raw, pure grief. Then it's more of a passive thing, almost like an act of shame. They just stop putting on their nice things, their ornaments. And finally, it becomes this active, collective act of obedience. They physically strip themselves of their ornaments right there by the mountain.
Okay, so with the people deep in mourning and God keeping his distance, the whole narrative suddenly zooms in on one person, their leader, Moses, and specifically on the unique, incredibly personal connection he has with God. So to try and bridge this massive gap that's opened up, Moses sets up this thing called the Tent of Meeting, and its location is absolutely crucial. Notice it's pitched afar off from the camp. It's a neutral zone, physically separated from the community, which is now kind of tainted, so that a sacred conversation can still happen. In this moment of crisis, this tent, it's their only lifeline. And this isn't some secret backroom deal, not at all. It's a public spectacle. Everybody watches as Moses goes out to the tent, and then they all see it, this visible symbol of God's presence, this pillar of cloud descending to talk with him. It's a public display that basically screams to everyone, this guy is our one and only link. And this really drives home just how profound that relationship is. The text says God spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaketh unto his friend. I mean, wow. Now compare that to his apprentice, Joshua. He's totally devoted, but all he can do is wait outside the tent. He's a faithful servant for sure, but he's never, ever part of that conversation. So Moses has this one-of-a-kind, friendly access to the ultimate power in the universe. And he doesn't just roll over and accept God's decision to leave. No, he does something pretty remarkable. He starts to negotiate. He starts to argue on behalf of his people. And here's his opening argument. He basically says, look, if I've really found grace in your sight, that's not enough for me. For me to lead these people, I have to know you. I need to understand your ways. And then he adds, and hey, don't forget, this is your nation, not just mine. He's totally leveraging his personal relationship for the good of the whole community. It's brilliant. And the amazing thing is, God agrees. He says, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Now, most people would stop there, right? But not Moses. He hears this yes, and he decides to push things to the absolute limit with an even bolder request. So you have to ask, what could possibly be more than asking God to stay? This is it. This is the climax of the whole story. Moses says, I beg you, show me your glory. He's not just asking for presence anymore or for guidance. No, he's asking to see the very essence of God's being, the raw, unfiltered source of all power. It is probably the boldest request anyone could ever make.
So, how do you even respond to a request like that? Well, God's answer is fascinating because it's both a hard no and at the same time a really profound and surprising yes.
First, you get the hard boundary. God makes it absolutely clear. You can't see my face. A direct, full-on encounter is just impossible. The sheer intensity of his glory isn't something a mortal can survive. So seeing his face, that's completely off the table. But then comes the yes part. And instead of some big visual spectacle of raw power, God completely redefines what glory even means. He says he'll let all his goodness pass before Moses. And what's that goodness? Well, it's his character, it's his name, it's his freedom to be gracious and show mercy to whoever he wants. So glory isn't just about might, it's about character. And this all leads to the final, incredible compromise. God says he'll hide Moses in a crack in a rock, and he'll cover him with his hand as he passes by. So Moses won't see the face, the direct source of all that glory, but he will get to see the back parts. He'll see the after effects, the lingering trail of that goodness. It's a partial view, yeah, an indirect one, but it's still a profoundly real experience. So what are we left with? Well, it's this timeless story about what leadership can look like. About a leader who just refuses to give up on his people, using his personal connection to fight for the whole community. But maybe even more profoundly, it redefines what ultimate power is. It's not about raw might, it's not about appearance, it's about the absolute freedom to show mercy. And that leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What does this ancient story tell us about what we should value in our leaders, and maybe what true glory really looks like, even for us, today?